think what we really have to understand is the intersection of the system of not just racism, but as we talk about racial capitalism, that was necessary for the Islamophobic or Islamophobia as a system to take place in the US. We also have to understand that in the US, we can actually use the language of religious freedoms in a way kind of against the American narrative of trying to silence Islam or harass practitioners of Islam. So for example, I think there's a different relationship to religious practice in the US than in Europe. In the US, because our origin story, our imperial origin story, our colonial origin story is one of Puritans coming to escape religious persecution in England to the States, and of course erases the genocide of an indigenous population, the enslavement of Africans, and especially a significant population of them Muslims, then that narrative is still powerful today. The idea of respecting religious freedom, religious institutions, but yes, creating a sort of separation of church and state still doesn't diminish the interest that Americans have in protecting religions. While that narrative doesn't acknowledges and goes as far as to erase those other groups of people and their narratives, it's still a powerful one that we can use in organizing and building power in our communities. But it also has a different sort of struggle. So what becomes very popular in the US are interfaith dialogue and interfaith work as a way to transform people's feelings, and then in this kind of schema, you transform people's feelings, then you transform the system. But what it does is it also takes the culpability off of the state for its militarism in those countries where people who do practice Islam have grievances against. So it depoliticizes what is actually legitimate grievances within a Muslim community. And it also can abstract or derail critiques of certain institutions because, hey, it's somebody who doesn't understand our religion, so they're just ignorant, and that's it. And then we could just, through interfaith dialogue, kill that ignorance and change the system. But we're not looking at the deep investment that the state and these institutions have in oppressing Muslim populations, and especially Black Muslim populations. So I think this is how it plays out a little differently in the States, is that we're talking about the intersections of race. We have a different approach to quote unquote religious freedom. We have kind of an obsession around interfaith dialogue as a strategy to fight against Islamophobia. And the things that I think are similar, though, is that we do talk about de-radicalizing, and the state does intervene to provide a lot of support for Muslims who will, one, admit that radicalization is a problem, and two, give them money to fight it. So there is a lot of collusion between, or desired collusion between the state and the Muslim community. There is police department outreach to Muslim communities. There's this kind of segment within the Muslim population that thinks, hey, if I didn't do anything wrong, then why wouldn't I collaborate with police department and the state? Completely ignoring what the state's strategy is, one. Two, the harassment, the historic harassment of the Black community and the war on the Black community that we're complicit in when we become partners with law enforcement. So I think those are some of the sort of differences, but I understand that the de-radicalization programs are kind of popular in a global scope, even though they also, one, don't work, and two, force us to legitimate radicalization as a problem, and then three, most importantly, turn radical into a bad word. Radical has this historic past from the labor movement to the Black freedom movement as the person who wants to dig at the roots and pull the roots out and say, this is the problem. I'm not interested in the symptoms. I'm interested in going to the deep roots of the diseases. I don't want to prescribe pharmaceuticals. I want to go and holistically dig out the issues. Now, radical is a bad word. It has a negative association. And so we have to do the work of not only not participating in de-radicalization programs, or in the US it's called CD, countering violent extremism, but we have to reclaim the word radical.